Hi everyone, welcome back to English with Katharine. Today I'm going to show you some alternatives to saying I think. So of course it's absolutely fine to say I think. In British English we use this hundreds of times a day, but of course we don't just use I think. We like to mix it up a little bit, as I'm sure you do in your own native language. And this just helps to give your speaking a bit of variety and make it sound a bit more interesting. Now, because I think is used to give opinions and views and make predictions about things, there are a lot of different contexts that these can be used in. But don't worry, I will give you some examples of how to use each one and which context to use each one in. Now, just to say, it has been solidly raining in the UK for about 2 days, so I'm pretty sure the microphone is going to pick up the rainfall. In fact, I can hear the pitter-patter right now, and I'm pretty sure you can too. Sorry. It actually snowed yesterday, so it was just incredible. Like when you look out of your window in the morning and it's all white. It's amazing. Anyway, let's get started with the alternatives to I think. Number 1 is I reckon. I reckon. I reckon. Now this is so common in British English speaking. I probably use this about 300 times a day, and actually in the first class with my students I usually teach them this word because it's so useful. So we use this for making predictions about the future. So for example, football. Not that I know anything about football, but many people do in the UK. Or about the weather, which, as I'm sure you know, is very important for British English speaking in small talk. So as with most or all predictions, they are based on some evidence. For example, if Chelsea have been doing really well recently, you might say, I reckon Chelsea are going to win the game on Saturday. If not, you'll probably say, I reckon Chelsea are going to lose. And if you see some grey clouds outside, you will probably say, I reckon it's going to rain. Or if you see that everywhere is turning yellow, which is usually what happens just before a storm, you can say, I reckon there's going to be a storm. Or if you can just see the sun peeking out from behind the clouds, you might say, I reckon it's going to brighten up. I reckon it's going to brighten up. You will also commonly hear in British English speaking, what do you reckon? What do you reckon? Now, as you can hear, the do you is blended together to make it easier to say, so it ends up sounding like due or ja. What do you reckon, or what do you reckon? For example, which colour do you reckon the bride is going to choose for her bridesmaids' dresses? The answer could be, I reckon she's going to choose pink. The evidence of this would be that the bride likes the colour pink, and you already know that. And since it's quite interesting to make predictions about the future in order to prepare for it, we use this a lot in British English conversation, at work, with friends. It's just very useful. And it's much more interesting than just saying, I think. Number 2 is to be honest. To be honest. To be honest. So this is one of the many examples of polite British English. So we say to be honest just before delivering a piece of information that might be a little bit negative or difficult for the listener to hear, because it might cause offence, as it could be quite confrontational or just difficult for them to process. In British culture, we really don't like to offend people. We're really polite, sometimes too polite. And, you know, we hate confrontation and we will do anything to avoid awkwardness. So, for example, you could say, to be honest, before sharing your true feelings as part of your advice to a friend or someone that's asking for your advice. And because you really want to tell them how you feel, you don't want to give them completely false or fake advice, you have to try to deliver something negative in a nice way. For example, to be honest, I think you should quit your job. You could also use this expression to share your true feelings of how you felt about a situation. For example, to be honest, I was really disappointed with the results. So say, to be honest, before delivering advice or your true feelings on something when they might be seen as direct or offensive. Number 3 is, from my point of view, or in my opinion. From my point of view, or in my opinion. You could use these expressions for any subject, ranging from how you feel about dogs or cats, or the price of chips, or which country has the best beaches, which country has the best food, or something really serious like feminism, Brexit, or tattoos. Anything. Just use these expressions instead of just saying, I think. For example, in my opinion, a 4-day working week would be much better. It would make the staff so much more productive. Or, from my point of view, 4:30 would be a much better time to finish than 6. And just to give you one of my opinions, from my point of view, dogs make much better pets than cats. I'm sure some people will disagree. I think dogs are like companions, they're like a friend, because they're really loyal, and that's just great in a pet, right? Tell me in the comments below, without using I think, how you feel about dogs or cats. Are you a dog person or a cat person? Number 4 is, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm concerned, notice that I'm is stressed, okay? So make sure you make it sound like that. So, as far as I'm concerned. So this is the most formal example of all of them, okay? You need this for anything serious that needs addressing. So perhaps something that happened at work that needs addressing and needs some attention. And maybe you'll be asked how you feel about the situation, honestly, and what your input is. This expression really commands attention. It helps set a really serious tone to the sentence, and it's far more powerful, professional, and serious than just I think. For example, as far as I'm concerned, they were just doing their job. As far as I'm concerned, they were just doing their job. I think is just too weak here. We need something stronger that sets the tone more appropriately. Number 5 is, if you ask me, if you ask me, if you ask me. Here we have another example, like number 2, of very polite English, okay? So, if you ask me, it's a soft way, again, to introduce maybe something negative, direct, something difficult for the listener to hear, you know, another example of that. So there will be many situations where you will need phrases that are part of polite British English. So this one will come in handy for you. For example, if you ask me, you should break up with him. So that piece of advice is actually very direct. If you just said, you should break up with him, the listener would be like, oh, thanks. That's quite direct. It sounds a bit forceful and like bossy, you know? And really, when we're advising friends or family or anyone, you cannot really tell anyone what to do. You can only guide them, okay? Even if what they're doing is just so illogical and irrational, you still can only guide. Another example is, if you ask me, I think she should be fired. That is a very strong opinion there, and if you ask me, just helps to soften the blow. If you remember, soften the blow means to reduce the impact of something negative that might cause offence. So, if you ask me is not just for delivering negative information, but it very often is, as it really does do a good job of softening the blow, like I just said. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you ask me, it went pretty well. I hope you have a great weekend. If you'd like to subscribe, that would be amazing. Thank you. And I will see you next week for another video. Bye!